The scent of cinnamon and fresh coffee always felt like a warm blanket on Tuesday mornings. Layla had worked the early shift at Silver Moon Cafe for 2 years now. 2 years of learning that Mrs. Chen wanted extra foam. 2 years of knowing the college student in the corner booth took his espresso black and bitter. 2 years of watching the same little girl walk through the door at exactly 8:15 every Tuesday. That little girl never came alone. She had dark curls that bounced with every tiny step. Her eyes were the color of honey mixed with gold. She looked no older than 6, but there was something ancient in the way she carried herself. She spoke in whispers, please and thank you, always polite, always careful, always afraid of making a mistake. Her name was Elena. Layla learned that 3 weeks ago when the girl accidentally left her stuffed rabbit on the counter, a worn little thing with button eyes that had seen better days. Layla had called after her, and the child had turned with such panic in her eyes that Layla's heart cracked right down the middle. She started adding extra marshmallows to Elena's hot chocolate after that, then a small cookie on the side. Tiny acts of kindness that made the little girl's face light up like sunrise, breaking through storm clouds. Every Tuesday at 8:15, Elena walked in holding that same stuffed rabbit. 2 men in dark suits followed her. They never ordered anything. They just sat at nearby tables, eyes scanning the room like hawks searching for movement in the grass. Layla assumed they were bodyguards. She never asked. Some questions felt dangerous, and Layla had learned long ago that survival meant knowing which questions to swallow. This Tuesday started like every other Tuesday. The bell above the door chimed. Elena walked in. The 2 men took their positions. Layla already had the hot chocolate ready, star-shaped marshmallows floating on top like little wishes waiting to come true. She carried the mug to Elena's usual table by the window where the morning sun painted the street in shades of gold and amber. "Thank you, Miss Layla." Elena's voice was soft, almost swallowed by the cafe's quiet hum. "You're very welcome, sweetheart. I added an extra star today, just for you." Elena's smile was small but real, the kind of smile that said she wasn't used to receiving kindness without expecting a trap hidden inside it. She reached for the mug with both hands, careful not to spill. The stuffed rabbit sat beside her plate, button eyes keeping watch like a silent soldier. Layla returned to the counter and started wiping surfaces that didn't need wiping. The cafe was quiet. Only 5 customers total, the college student typing furiously, an elderly man reading a newspaper, a young couple sharing a pastry and stolen glances, and Elena, alone in a crowd of bodyguards who never spoke to her. Everything was peaceful. Everything was normal. Right up until the black van screeched to a stop outside. Layla noticed it before her brain could name the fear crawling up her spine. The van's doors flew open before the wheels finished trembling. Men poured out. 5 of them, maybe 6. They moved like wolves who had practiced this moment 100 times. Their hands held objects that caught the morning light in all the wrong ways. Guns. Layla's body moved before her mind caught up. She vaulted over the counter, biscotti scattered across the floor, breaking into pieces that crunched under her shoes. The 2 suited guards were already rising from their seats, reaching for weapons hidden beneath their jackets, but they were too far away, too slow. Elena looked up from her hot chocolate, confused by the sudden noise. Her honey gold eyes found Layla's face just as the cafe's front window exploded inward. Glass became 1,000 tiny razors flying through the air in slow motion. Layla's arms wrapped around Elena's small body. She lifted the girl from the chair and twisted, putting her own back between the child and the window, between the child and the men with guns, between the child and whatever nightmare was crawling through the shattered glass toward them. The impact hit her like a freight train. Once, twice, 3 times, sharp and burning and impossibly hard. Her knees buckled. She went down, still holding Elena, curling around her like a shell protecting something precious. The floor was cold against her cheek. She could hear screaming now, gunfire, the suited guards returning fire, footsteps running, shouting in languages she couldn't understand. But all of that felt distant, like it was happening in another world, behind a wall of glass she couldn't break through. Elena was crying beneath her. tiny hands gripping Layla's uniform so tight her knuckles had turned white. "Are you okay?" Layla managed to whisper through the fire spreading across her back. The little girl nodded against her chest. Layla felt wetness spreading across her own back, warm and wrong. The pain was starting to register now, no longer distant but immediate and terrible. She tried to take a breath and felt something shift inside her chest that should never shift. The gunfire stopped. Sudden silence, more deafening than the noise had been. Then footsteps running toward her, someone shouting orders, hands on her shoulders trying to move her. "No," Layla gasped. The word came out broken. "Elena, don't move her." A deep voice answered, male, controlled, but edged with something sharp enough to cut glass. "Get my daughter out first." Daughter? Layla's fading mind grabbed onto that word. Not a random child, someone's daughter. Gentle hands lifted Elena away. The little girl was screaming now, reaching back for Layla with desperate fingers. Miss Layla, don't go." Layla tried to smile, tried to show the child that everything would be okay, but her face wouldn't cooperate. Everything was getting fuzzy around the edges, like someone was slowly turning down the lights in a room she wasn't ready to leave. She felt herself being rolled over. The movement sent lightning through her chest, and a sound escaped her throat that she didn't recognize as her own voice. Above her, a man's face came into focus. Sharp features carved from marble, dark hair touched with silver at the temples, eyes the same honey gold color as Elena's, but ancient, holding centuries of winter inside them. He was beautiful the way a sword was beautiful. Dangerous, precise, made for purposes that had nothing to do with kindness. "Stay with me," he said, his hand pressed against her back, trying to stop the bleeding she could feel pouring out of her body. His other hand cradled her face with surprising gentleness, as if she was something fragile instead of a waitress bleeding out on a cafe floor. "What's your name?" "Layla." The word came out far away like someone else was speaking it. "Layla." He repeated it like it mattered, like it was important. "I'm Damien. You saved my daughter." She tried to respond, tried to say it was nothing, that anyone would have done the same, but her lungs wouldn't fill properly. Each breath felt like drowning. Darkness crept in from the corners of her vision. "Don't close your eyes." Damien's voice was no longer a request. It was an order delivered with the weight of absolute authority. "Stay with Elena. She needs to thank you properly." Elena's face appeared beside her father, tears streaming down her cheeks, her small hand reaching for Layla. "Miss Layla gave me extra marshmallows every Tuesday, extra stars." Damien's expression shifted. Something behind his eyes cracked just a little. "You knew my daughter?" "Comes every week. Sweet girl. Deserves all the stars." The darkness was winning. She could feel it pulling her down like deep water, like hands of shadow dragging her toward somewhere she couldn't come back from. Damien's hand tightened on her face. "No, you don't have my permission to die. Do you understand me? Layla, look at me." She tried. She really did. But the world was fading. The last thing she heard was Damien's voice, stripped of command, raw with something that sounded like desperation. "Someone get me a healer now. Find Victor. I don't care if you have to drag him from his coffin. This human does not die." Then nothing. Layla awoke to whiteness. White ceiling, white walls, white sheets tucked around her body with hospital corners so precise they could have been folded by a ghost. For a moment she thought she was dead. This must be what heaven looked like. Clean, quiet, sterile. Then the pain hit and she knew with absolute certainty that she was very much alive. Dead people didn't hurt like this. Her back felt like someone had set it on fire and then put the fire out with a hammer. Every breath pulled at something deep inside her chest, something that groaned in protest with each rise and fall. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as the room spun around her like a carousel designed by a cruel god. "Easy." A voice came from beside her bed. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. The damage was extensive." The voice belonged to a man she'd never seen before. Thin face, silver hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, wire-rimmed glasses perched on a nose that looked like it had been broken at least once. He wore a white coat over a black shirt and studied her with the clinical interest of someone examining a particularly fascinating insect. Where am I? Layla's throat felt like sandpaper coated in broken glass. My private medical facility. The man's voice was calm, professional. I'm Dr. Victor Castellanos. You're lucky to be alive. The bullets hit your lung, liver, and shoulder. You should have died on that cafe floor. The memory crashed back into her like waves against a crumbling shore. Glass, gunfire, screaming. Elena, the little girl. Elena, Layla's voice cracked. Where is she? Safe. Victor adjusted his glasses with a careful finger. Unharmed. Thanks to your intervention. You took 3 bullets meant for her. She would have been killed instantly. The image of Elena's small body in her arms flashed through Layla's mind. The terror in those honey gold eyes. The way her tiny fingers had gripped Layla's uniform like she was holding on to the only safe thing in a world that had gone mad. Good, Layla whispered. That's good. The doctor's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Yes, she does. He made a note on a tablet he pulled from his coat pocket. His Majesty will want to know you're awake. His... who? But Victor was already walking toward the door. I'll send word. He'll want to speak with you personally. Wait. Layla's voice came out stronger than she felt. What do you mean, Majesty? Who exactly is Elena's father? Victor paused at the door. He looked back at her with something that might have been amusement or pity. It was hard to tell. You really don't know. Know what? King Damien Thorne. Victor spoke the name like it carried weight, like each syllable was a stone placed carefully on a scale. Ruler of the Eastern Vampire Territories, one of the oldest and most powerful vampires in existence. You threw yourself in front of bullets for the Vampire King's daughter. The words didn't make sense. Vampire King. Those were things from stories, from movies, from the kind of books people read with flashlights under their covers when they were supposed to be sleeping. Not from real life. Not from Tuesday morning coffee runs with extra marshmallows. You're joking. Layla's voice came out weak, almost childlike. Victor's slight smile said he wasn't. The supernatural world exists parallel to yours, Miss Layla. He gestured at her bandaged body with one thin hand. We've simply been very good at staying hidden, until moments like this, moments when humans stumble into our conflicts. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist this was impossible, that vampires weren't real, that she was dreaming or hallucinating from blood loss. But her back pain was too real, the hospital room too detailed. And when she closed her eyes, she could still feel the weight of Elena's small body in her arms, still hear her crying, Miss Layla, don't go. The door opened again an hour later. Layla had been dozing, drifting in and out of uncomfortable sleep filled with shattered glass and falling darkness. She opened her eyes to find Damien standing at the foot of her bed. He looked different than he had in the cafe, less desperate, more controlled. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her annual rent, tailored perfectly to his tall frame. His dark hair was swept back from his face, revealing those sharp features she remembered. But his eyes were the same, ancient honey gold, studying her with an intensity that made her want to hide under the blankets. You're awake. He said it like a statement, not a question. Layla nodded. Her throat was too tight for words. Damien moved closer. His footsteps made no sound on the floor, as if he weighed nothing at all. How do you feel? Like I got shot, Layla managed. 3 times. The corner of his mouth twitched. Might have been a smile, might have been something else entirely. Fair assessment. Thank you, Layla added, because her mother had raised her to have manners even when speaking to ancient vampire kings. For saving my life. You said I should have died. Damien's expression darkened. You would have. Without immediate vampire blood to stabilize you, the damage was too severe. I gave you my blood. 3 transfusions over 3 days to heal the worst of it. Layla's hand went to her chest, touching the bandages underneath her hospital gown. You gave me my blood. It was necessary. His tone was matter-of-fact, as if discussing the weather or the price of coffee. And a small repayment for what you did. You saved my daughter's life. There is no debt large enough to cover that. I don't want anything, Layla said quickly. I'm just glad she's okay. Damien shook his head slowly. You don't understand. You can't refuse. The debt exists whether you want it or not, and I intend to repay it in full. He leaned forward slightly, and his presence suddenly filled the room like smoke, overwhelming, inescapable. You can't go back to your normal life. The people who attacked the cafe know you protected Elena. They know you survived. That makes you a target now, too. I'm just a waitress, Layla protested. I'm nobody. You're the human who took bullets for the vampire princess. Damien's voice was quiet but firm. You're someone who acted without hesitation to protect what's mine. That makes you extremely interesting to my enemies. They'll want to know why. They'll want to know if you're important to me. Fear crawled up Layla's spine like cold fingers. Are you saying I'm in danger? Imminent danger, Damien confirmed. I've had guards watching your apartment since the attack. There have already been 3 attempts to breach the perimeter. My people stopped them, but it's only a matter of time before they succeed. I don't even know these people. Layla's voice shook despite her best efforts to steady it. Why would they care about me? Because they know I care. Damien said the words quietly, but they landed like stones in still water. Anyone who protects my daughter becomes someone I protect in return. It's how I'm made, how all vampires of my age are made. Loyalty for loyalty, protection for protection. You saved what's mine. Now you're mine to keep safe. The possessiveness in his tone should have frightened her. Instead, it felt oddly reassuring, like a wall being built between her and the darkness that wanted to swallow her whole. So what do I do? Layla asked. I can't just hide forever. No, Damien agreed, which is why I'm offering you a choice. He pulled a chair closer to her bed and sat down with fluid grace. The firelight from somewhere in the room caught the silver in his hair and made it glow like moonlight on water. Option 1, I relocate you. New identity, new city, new life. You'll disappear completely. My people will set you up with everything you need. Money, housing, employment. You'll be comfortable, but you'll be alone. You'll never see Elena again. Layla's heart clenched so hard she felt it in her throat. Never? It would be too dangerous, Damien explained. Any connection between you could be traced. You'd have to cut all ties completely. What's option 2? Layla asked, already knowing she couldn't accept option 1. The thought of never seeing Elena again, never knowing if the little girl was safe and happy and still getting extra marshmallows on her hot chocolate, it felt impossible, like agreeing to stop breathing. Damien's honey gold eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that stole the air from her lungs. You come with me. You live in the palace under my protection. You become part of Elena's life officially. Governess, companion, whatever title feels appropriate. You'd be safe within my territory. My enemies wouldn't dare attack you there. He paused. His voice dropped lower. But it would mean leaving your human life behind entirely. Your job, your apartment, your friends, everything. You'd be entering a world that operates by different rules, vampire rules. And once you're in that world, leaving becomes complicated. Layla's mind reeled. Live in a vampire palace, become part of Elena's life, give up everything she knew. It was insane, impossible, the kind of decision that should have filled her with terror. You don't have to decide now, Damien said, smoothing his jacket with long fingers. Think about it. You have until you're medically cleared to leave, about a week. Then I'll need your answer. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Elena drew you a picture. She wanted me to give it to you." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket and set it on her bedside table. Then he was gone. The door closed silently behind him, as if he'd never been there at all. Layla reached for the paper with shaking hands. She unfolded it carefully. The drawing was done in crayon, wobbly lines and imperfect shapes, the way children's art always was. It showed two figures, a small one with dark curls holding a stuffed rabbit, a taller one with yellow hair drawn in bright, happy colors. They were holding hands. Above them, Elena had drawn stars, dozens of stars scattered across the page like marshmallows floating in hot chocolate. At the bottom, in carefully printed letters that must have taken her a long time to write, "Thank you, Miss Layla. I love you." Layla's vision blurred. She pressed the drawing to her chest, feeling tears slip down her cheeks and soak into the hospital gown. She thought about her small apartment that she could barely afford, her job at the cafe that paid minimum wage and demanded maximum effort, her few friends who she saw maybe once a month, her family 3 states away who she called on holidays and spoke to for exactly 11 minutes before running out of things to say. Compared to a little girl who drew pictures with stars and said, "I love you." A little girl who needed someone to care about her extra marshmallows, who needed someone to make her feel safe and loved and important in a world that had already taken her mother and wanted to take her too. It wasn't even a choice. Not really. Layla had thrown herself in front of bullets without thinking. This was just another leap, a different kind of danger, a different kind of faith. When Victor came to check in on her that evening, she asked him to send a message to Damien. "Tell him I choose option 2. Layla's voice was steady. "Tell him I'm coming to the palace." Victor smiled slightly. "He already knew you would. He's been preparing a room for you since the day you woke up." "How did he know?" Victor's smile widened. "Because he knows what it looks like when someone loves his daughter. And he knows that people who truly love her don't walk away, not even when it's safer, not even when it's smarter." Layla looked down at the drawing in her hands, at the stars and the careful letters spelling out love. No, she thought, they don't walk away. They leap.
The next morning, Layla woke to sunlight streaming through tall windows and the sound of small feet running across the floor. "Miss Layla," Elena burst through the connecting door, already dressed and vibrating with energy. "You're still here. You didn't leave. I told you I wouldn't," Layla said, sitting up and smiling at the child's obvious relief. Elena climbed onto the bed, rabbit tucked under one arm. "Can we have breakfast in the garden? Daddy said I could show you the roses. They're my favorite." "That sounds perfect," Layla agreed. "Give me a few minutes to get dressed." She found clothes laid out for her, simple but well made, styles that wouldn't look out of place in the palace. Someone had chosen them carefully, someone who knew her size and her taste without ever asking. Layla dressed quickly and let Elena lead her through the winding corridors down to a garden that took her breath away. Roses of every color bloomed in careful beds, red and white and yellow and pink, some so dark they looked almost black, others so pale they seemed to glow in the morning light. Paths wound between them, leading to a courtyard with a table already set for breakfast. Damien sat at the head of the table reading something on a tablet. He looked up as they approached, his expression softening when he saw his daughter's excitement. "Good morning," he said. "Did you sleep well, Layla?" "Very well, thank you," Layla replied, taking the seat Elena indicated. The little girl climbed into her own chair and immediately started chattering about the roses, about the butterflies she'd seen yesterday, about the new book she wanted Layla to read tonight. A servant appeared with breakfast, fresh fruit, pastries, eggs, prepared 3 different ways. Elena loaded her plate with strawberries and cream. Layla took modest portions, still feeling like a guest rather than someone who lived here. Damien watched them with that same unreadable expression. After breakfast, "Daddy has meetings," Elena announced, "but Margaret said she'd take us to the library. It has 1,000,000 books." "Maybe not 1,000,000, Damien corrected with the faintest smile, "but close." He looked at Layla. "I'll have someone bring you the materials about Elena's education. She has tutors for mathematics and languages, but I'd like you to oversee her general learning, reading, writing, history, things that require a gentler touch. Of course, Layla agreed. What languages is she studying? Latin, French, and Spanish, currently. Damien said. She add others as she gets older. Vampire society requires multilingual fluency. Alina made a face. Latin is hard, but you're doing wonderfully. Her father assured her. Your tutor says you have an excellent memory. Layla spent the day learning the rhythms of palace life. Margaret showed her the library, an enormous room filled with books from floor to ceiling, accessible by rolling ladders that creaked delightfully when you climbed them. The music room with its grand piano that hadn't been tuned in decades but still sang like angels when played. The ballroom that looked like something from a movie, with crystal chandeliers and floors polished to a mirror. Shine. The kitchens where staff prepared meals for the 100 or so people who lived and worked in the palace. Everyone she met was kind, welcoming. They all seemed genuinely happy that she was there, that Alina had finally found someone she'd bonded with. By afternoon, Layla understood why Alina had been alone in her grief, surrounded by people, but isolated by loss and fear and the weight of being a vampire princess. She needed someone who saw her as just a little girl, someone who cared about her marshmallows. The tutors arrived after lunch. Layla sat with Alina through mathematics, watching the little girl work through problems with careful concentration. Then French, where Elena's pronunciation was nearly perfect. Then music, where she played simple scales on the piano with small, determined hands. You're very talented, Layla told her when the lessons finished. Alina beamed. Daddy says Mama loved music. She used to sing to me when I was little. Do you remember her? Layla asked gently. A little. Elena's expression grew wistful. She had long dark hair, and she smiled a lot, and she smelled like flowers. She used to dance with me in the garden. Her small face clouded. Then the bad men came, and she went away. Daddy said she went to heaven, that she's watching over me. I'm sure she is, Layla said, pulling the child close, and I'm sure she's very proud of you. Do you think Mama would have liked me? Alina asked quietly. Layla said carefully. She would have loved you exactly as much as you deserve to be loved, which is more than all the stars in the sky. Alina hugged her tight. I'm glad you came to live with us. Me too, sweetheart. That evening, Damien joined them for dinner in a smaller dining room, more intimate than the formal hall. He asked Alina about her lessons, listened attentively as she described her day, praised her progress in French after Lena went to bed. Following another story from Layla, Damien invited Layla to join him in his study. The room was lined with books and artifacts that looked ancient, older than anything Layla had ever seen in a museum. A fire burned in a massive hearth, casting warm light across leather chairs and dark wood. Damien poured 2 glasses of wine and offered her one. You've made a remarkable difference already, he said, settling into a chair across from her. She hasn't been this animated in years. She's a wonderful child, Layla replied, easy to care about. Damien studied her over his wineglass. You don't have to be so formal with me. Not here in private. This is your home now. I'm still adjusting, Layla admitted. This morning I was a waitress. Now I'm living in a palace caring for a princess. It's a lot to process. He nodded. I understand. But I meant what I said about the debt. You're not a servant here, Layla. Your family. As Margaret said, Alina has claimed you. That makes you mine to protect. The possessiveness in his tone sent a shiver through her that wasn't entirely fear. You keep saying that I'm yours. In vampire culture, it's not ownership, Damien explained. It's responsibility. When someone puts themselves at risk for what's mine, they become part of what I protect. It's instinct, deeper than choice. Layla took a sip of wine, gathering courage. And if I hadn't saved Alina, then you would have been just another person in that cafe, Damien said, anonymous and forgotten. His honey-gold eyes held hers. But you didn't walk away. You ran toward danger. That changes everything. They talked late into the night. He told her about vampire society, the territories, the old feuds that had led to the attack, the enemies who wanted his daughter dead because her existence made him vulnerable. She told him about her childhood, her brother, her quiet life before all this, the loneliness she'd felt even when surrounded by people who thought they knew her. Somewhere in the conversation, she realized she was talking to him not as a king, but as a person, someone lonely and burdened who rarely had anyone to simply talk to. When she finally returned to her room, she found Alina had crept into her bed, rabbit tucked under one arm. The little girl stirred as Layla slid in beside her. Bad dream, Alina whispered. But it's okay now, Layla said, stroking her hair. You're here. Alina nodded sleepily and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was breathing evenly again, peaceful. Layla lay awake, thinking about the strange turn her life had taken, how 3 bullets had led her here, to this child who needed her, to this palace that was starting to feel like home, and to a king who looked at her like she was something precious, something worth protecting. Asterisk, she didn't know what that meant yet, but lying there in the darkness, with Elena's small hand in hers, she thought maybe she wanted to find out.
3 weeks passed. Layla fell into a rhythm. Mornings with Elena, lessons and play. Afternoons in the library or gardens. Evenings with Damien. Sometimes with Elena, sometimes alone. Talking about everything and nothing. She learned vampire history, politics, the intricate web of alliances and enemies that stretched back centuries. She met other supernatural beings who visited the palace. Witches and werewolves and beings she had no names for. All of them treated her with respect, recognizing her as someone under the king's protection. Elena bloomed under the attention. Her nightmares became less frequent, her smiles more genuine. She started initiating hugs, seeking physical affection she'd been afraid to ask for before. She drew pictures constantly, filling Layla's room with crayon renderings of their days. Together. Damien changed too, slowly, almost imperceptibly. He smiled more, laughed at Elena's jokes, spent less time locked in his study and more time in the garden with his daughter. Watching them together, Layla saw the father he must have been before tragedy had hardened him, but something else was happening too. Something Layla didn't understand. She started having dreams, not nightmares. Something different, something stranger. In the dreams, she was standing in a room she'd never seen before. A nursery, filled with toys and books, and a crib that rocked gently despite no wind. A woman sat in a chair by the window. Dark hair, pale skin, eyes the color of honey gold. Elena's eyes. The woman was singing. A lullaby Layla had never heard, but somehow knew. The words were in a language she didn't speak, but she understood them anyway. Safe, little one. Safe in the shadows. Safe in the night. Mama is watching. Mama is waiting. Mama will keep you from harm. Layla always woke up with tears on her face. She didn't tell anyone about the dreams. Not Damien. Not Margaret. Not even Elena. She told herself they were nothing. Stress, adjustment, her brain processing, trauma in strange ways, but the dreams kept coming. And each time, the woman in the nursery seemed more real, more solid. Like she was trying to tell Layla something important. On the 25th day, everything changed. Layla was in the library with Elena when Margaret appeared in the doorway. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. Miss Layla, you need to come with me. Now, what's wrong? Please, just come. Layla looked at Elena. Stay here, sweetheart. I'll be right back. But Elena's hand shot out, grabbing her sleeve. Don't go. Her voice was small, scared. Something's wrong. I can feel it. Layla knelt down. Nothing's wrong. I promise. I'll be back before you finish coloring that picture. Elena didn't look convinced, but she let go. Margaret led Layla through corridors she hadn't explored before, down staircases that spiraled into darkness, through doors that required keys Margaret produced from somewhere in her dress. Where are we going? The lower levels. Margaret's voice was tight. His Majesty said to bring you if anything happened to him. If anything happened to him. Layla's heart stopped. What do you mean? What's happened to Damien? Margaret didn't answer. She stopped in front of a door made of iron, black and cold and covered in symbols Layla didn't recognize. She produced a final key and inserted it into the lock. The door swung open with a groan that sounded almost human. Inside was a room, small, circular, lit by candles that cast more shadows than light. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on the pedestal rested a mirror, not an ordinary mirror. This one was old, ancient. The glass was dark, like still water at midnight. The frame was carved from wood so black it seemed to swallow the candlelight dot. What is this? Layla whispered. Margaret's face was grim. The mirror of truth. It shows what is hidden, what is lost. What is coming, Dot? Why am I here? Because His Majesty is trapped. Margaret's voice cracked. The enemies who attacked the cafe, they didn't just want Elena dead. They wanted Damien weakened, and they found a way. She turned to face Layla. Her eyes were wet. They've taken him. Not his body. His mind, his soul. He's locked in a prison of his own making. A nightmare he can't wake from. And if he doesn't wake in 3 days, he'll be lost forever. Layla felt the floor shift beneath her feet. How do I save him? Margaret pointed to the mirror. You have to go in after him. Find him in the darkness. Bring him back. Go in. Layla stared at the dark glass. Go in where? The mirror. Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. It's a doorway. To his mind. To his memories. To the place where they've trapped him. Layla thought about Elena. About the little girl who'd already lost her mother. Who couldn't lose her father too. She thought about Damien. About the way he looked at her like she was something precious. About the nights they'd spent talking until dawn. About the trust he'd placed in her. Dot. She thought about the dreams. The woman in nursery. The lullaby. Dot. Mama is watching. Mama is waiting. Something clicked into place. I'll do it. Layla said. Tell me what I need to know. Margaret explained quickly. The mirror required a guide. Someone connected to Damien. Someone he trusted. Someone whose presence could anchor him in the darkness long enough to find his way out. That someone was Layla. Dot. Why me? She asked. I've only known him for a month because you saved his daughter. Margaret's voice was firm. Because he gave you his blood to save your life. Because you're bound to him now in ways neither of you fully understand. The mirror recognizes that bond. It will let you pass where others would be destroyed. Layla looked at the dark glass, at the shadows moving beneath its surface like living things. What will I find in there? His memories. Margaret's expression was heavy. His fears. His regrets. Everything he's tried to forget. The people who trapped him will be there too. Twisted versions of themselves. Trying to keep him imprisoned. How do I defeat them? You don't, Margaret said. You find him. You remind him who he is. And you lead him back to the light. The rest is up to him. Layla took a deep breath. What about Elena? Margaret's eyes softened. She'd be safe. I'll stay with her. But you need to go now. Every hour you wait makes it harder to bring him back. Layla stepped toward the mirror. The glass rippled as she approached, like water disturbed by wind. Dot. One more thing. Margaret called out. Once you go in, time moves differently. Hours here could feel like days in there. Or seconds. Don't let the disorientation stop you. Keep moving. Keep searching. He'll be in the darkest part of the prison. The place he fears most. Layla nodded. She reached out and touched the glass. Dot. Cold. So cold it burned. And then she was falling. She landed on stone floor. Hard. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs. She pushed herself up, looking around at a world made of shadows and whispers. The place looked like the palace. But wrong. Twisted. Hallways that led nowhere. Doors that opened onto blank walls. Stairs that spiraled into darkness and ended in ceilings. The air was cold, heavy. It smelled of dust and old grief. Damien? Layla called out. Her voice echoed strangely, bouncing off walls that shouldn't have been there. Dot. No answer. She started walking. The palace in the mirror was a maze. Rooms she recognized from the real palace, but corrupted. The library filled with books that screamed when she touched them. The garden where roses grew thorns as long as her fingers. The ballroom where shadows danced alone to music that sounded like crying. She walked for what felt like hours, calling his name, following whispers that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, and then she found him. He was in the throne room, kneeling in the center of the floor, his head bowed, his hands bound with chains made of shadow. Around him stood figures, men and women with faces that shifted and changed, never settling on one identity. The enemies Margaret had warned her about. Damien. Layla stepped into the room. The figures turned to look at her. Their eyes were hollow, empty, like dolls with nothing behind them. The human. One of them hissed, "The one who saved the child. She shouldn't be here." Another spat, "She doesn't belong. I belong wherever he is." Layla said, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. She walked toward Damien. The figures reached for her. Their hands passed through her like smoke. They couldn't touch her, couldn't stop her, the bond. She realized the blood Damien had given her. It protected her here. She knelt in front of him. His eyes were open but empty, staring at nothing. His face was slack, lost. Damien. She touched his face. It was cold, colder than it should have been. "Come back. Elena needs you." "I need you." No response. She tried again. "Remember the cafe? Remember the bullets? Remember how you commanded me not to die." Nothing. Desperation clawed at her throat. She thought about Margaret's words. "Remind him who he is." She leaned closer, spoke softer. "Remember the garden. Remember the roses Elena showed us. Remember the way she laughed when you spun her around. Remember the sound of her voice saying Daddy." Something flickered in his eyes. Just a spark. But it was there. She kept going. "Remember the night we talked until dawn. Remember telling me about Elena's mother. Remember how you said you'd stopped letting yourself feel attached to mortals. But you let me in anyway." His hand twitched. The chains rattled. "Remember promising to protect me. Remember saying I was yours to keep safe." His eyes focused. Slowly, painfully, like someone waking from 100 years sleep. "Layla." Tears streamed down her face. "I'm here. I came for you." The figures behind them screamed. Their forms twisted, becoming more solid, more desperate. "She's breaking him out." "Stop her." They lunged. But Damon's hand shot out, grabbing Layla's arm. His grip was weak but real. "How did you find me?" "I followed the bond." She said, "Now we need to leave. Can you stand?" He tried. His legs buckled. The chains dragged at his wrists, trying to pull him back down. Layla wrapped her arm around his waist, supporting him. "Come on." One step at a time, they moved toward the door. The figures swarmed around them, but couldn't touch them, couldn't stop them. The bond between Layla and Damien burned like a shield, like light pushing back darkness. The throne room dissolved around them. The palace dissolved. They were walking through memories now. Fragments of Damien's life playing out like movies on all sides. His childhood, his rise to power, his marriage, Elena's birth, Elena's mother. Layla saw her clearly for the first time. The woman from her dreams. Dark hair, pale skin, honey gold eyes. She was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, radiant, alive. And then she was gone. A memory of gunfire, of screaming, of Damien holding Elena while his wife bled out on the floor. Layla felt his grief like a physical blow. It washed through the bond, threatening to drown her. "Stay with me." She gasped. "Don't get lost." "I'm right here." They kept walking. They emerged from the mirror together. Layla collapsed on the stone floor of the circular room, gasping for breath. Damien landed beside her, his body shaking. His face was pale, gaunt, as if he hadn't slept in weeks instead of hours. Margaret rushed forward, wrapping a blanket around Layla's shoulders. "You did it. You brought him back." Layla couldn't speak. She just nodded, watching as servants helped Damien to his feet. He looked at her across the room. His eyes were clear again. "Present. Thank you." He mouthed the words. She couldn't hear them over the pounding of her own heart, but she understood later, after Damien had been taken to his chambers to rest. After Margaret had escorted Layla back to her room. After Layla had checked on Elena, who was sleeping peacefully with her rabbit tucked under her arm, Layla sat by the window, staring out at the gardens. The dreams. The woman in the nursery. The lullaby. It hadn't been random. It hadn't been stress. Something was happening to her. Something she didn't understand. A knock on her door made her turn. Margaret entered, carrying a tray of tea. Her face was serious. "You have questions?" Layla nodded. "The woman in my dreams. Elena's mother. She's trying to tell me something." Margaret set the tray down. Her hands were steady, but her eyes were troubled. "Elena's mother. Her name was Serafina. She was human, like you, and she loved Damien more than anything in this world. What happened to her?" Margaret was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "She didn't die in the attack." "That's what everyone believes. That's what Damien believes. But it's not true." Layla's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "Serafina was taken." Margaret's eyes glistened. "The enemies who attacked the cafe. They're the same ones who attacked the palace 3 years ago. They didn't want to kill her. They wanted to use her. As leverage. As a weapon." Layla stood up. Her legs felt unsteady. "She's alive?" "I don't know," Margaret admitted. "But I've always suspected. The way her body was never found. The way the enemies kept pushing, kept testing Damien's defenses. They have something he wants. Something they're holding over him. Why didn't you tell him?" "Because he wouldn't have believed me." Margaret's voice cracked. "He was so broken after she disappeared. So convinced she was dead. If I told him she might be alive, it would have destroyed him. The hope, the uncertainty. He wouldn't have been able to function. Elena would have been left without either parent." Layla pressed her hands against the window frame. The glass was cold. "So cold. Why are you telling me now?" "Because you went into the mirror and came back," Margaret said. "Because Serafina is reaching out to you in your dreams. Because I think she knows you're the only one who can save her." Layla turned around. "Save her from what?" "From the prison they've kept her in." Margaret's voice was firm. "From the darkness that's been holding her for 3 years. The same kind of prison they put Damien in tonight. But worse, deeper, one that requires more than love to break." "What does it require?" Margaret met her eyes. "Sacrifice." Layla didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, watching the stars fade as dawn approached, thinking about Serafina, about the woman who'd been trapped in darkness for 3 years while her daughter grew up without her. While her husband grieved a death that hadn't happened, the lullaby echoed in her mind. Mama is watching. Mama is waiting. Serafina wasn't watching from heaven. She was watching from a prison, waiting for someone to find her, to free her. But how? Layla was just a waitress, just a human. She had no magic, no power, no centuries of experience. She had the bond. She had Damien's blood in her veins. She had a connection to Serafina that she didn't understand but couldn't deny. And she had Elena, the little girl who deserved to have her real mother back, who deserved to know that her mama hadn't abandoned her, hadn't died, had been fighting to come home this whole time, Layla made a decision. She would find Serafina. She would free her, even if it meant giving up everything she'd found here. Even if it meant leaving the palace, leaving Damien, leaving Elena, because that's what love was. Not holding on, but letting go when letting go was the right thing to do. She just didn't know if her heart would survive it. Morning came colder than usual. Layla found Damien in the garden, standing among the roses Elena loved so much. His face was still pale from his ordeal in the mirror, but his eyes were clear, alert. "You shouldn't be out here," Layla said, approaching him. "You need to rest. I needed air." He turned to face her. "I needed to think about what happened, about what you showed me." His voice was quiet. "When I was lost in the darkness, I couldn't find my way out. I couldn't remember who I was. But you reminded me. You pulled me back." Layla nodded. "Someone did the same for me once. A long time ago. Who? My brother. Before he died, he used to tell me that darkness was just light waiting to be found. I never understood what he meant until last night. Damien studied her face. There's something you're not telling me." Layla hesitated. She thought about Margaret's words, about Serafina, about the sacrifice that might be required. If I tell you something, she said carefully, something that might hurt you. Will you promise to listen before you react? Damien's expression darkened. You're scaring me. I don't mean to. Layla took a deep breath. But I've been having dreams since I came here. Dreams about a woman. Dark hair, pale skin, honey gold eyes. Damien went very still. His face drained of what little color it had regained. Serafina. I think she's alive. Layla said, I think she's been trapped somewhere, in a prison like the one they put you in. And I think she's been reaching out to me because she knows I'm connected to you now. Because she knows I can find her. Damien's hands clenched at his sides. His breathing became ragged. If this is a joke, it's not a joke. Layla stepped closer. Margaret told me about the attack, about how Seraphine's body was never found, about how the enemies kept pushing, kept testing you. They have something you want, something they're holding over you. Damien turned away. His shoulders shook. 3 years. His voice was broken. 3 years I've been grieving her. 3 years I've been telling Elena her mother was in heaven. And now you're telling me she might be alive? I'm telling you what I've seen, what I felt. Layla said gently, I can't promise she's alive. I can't promise we can save her. But I can promise to try. If you'll let me. Damien turned back. His eyes were wet. Why would you do this? Why would you risk yourself for someone you've never met? Because Elena deserves her mother? Layla said simply, because you deserve to have your family whole again. Because Serafina has been waiting in the dark for 3 years, and no one should have to wait that long to come home. Damien stared at her for a long moment. Then he pulled her into an embrace. Not romantic, not possessive, just grateful, just human. Thank you. He whispered against her hair. Thank you for not giving up on us. Layd. I held him back, feeling the weight of his hope, his fear, his love for a woman he thought was dead. She didn't know if they could save Serafina, but she knew they had to try. The plan came together over the next 3 days. Margaret provided information, old texts, ancient rituals, ways to open doorways into the deeper prisons where enemies kept their most valuable hostages. Victor provided medical support, potions to keep Layla's body stable while her mind traveled, monitoring equipment to track her vitals. Damien provided something else. His blood, his memories, his connection to Serafina, which would serve as a beacon in the darkness. Elena provided the most important thing of all, hope. She doesn't know. Layla said to Damien on the night of the ritual. About her mother. About any of this. She can't know. Damien replied, not until we're sure. Not until we bring her back. And if we can't? Damien's jaw tightened. Then Elena never finds out. She's lost her mother once. I won't make her lose her again. The ritual took place in the circular room with the mirror. But this time, the mirror was different, darker, deeper. The glass showed not reflections, but shadows, moving. Waiting up, Margaret lit candles around the frame. Victor prepared the monitoring equipment. Damien stood beside Layla, holding her hand. You don't have to do this. He said, we can find another way. There is no other way. Layla replied, you know that. I know. His grip tightened. But I can't lose you too. You won't. Layla squeezed his hand back. I promise. She stepped toward the mirror. The glass rippled. The shadows swirled, and then she was falling again. This prison was worse than the first. Darker, colder. The air tasted like ash and old tears. The ground beneath her feet was made of broken glass that cut through her shoes, though she felt no pain. The bond with Damien was faint here, muffled, like hearing a voice through water. Serafina? Layla called out. Her voice disappeared into the darkness, swallowed whole. No answer. She walked. Through corridors made of shadow. Past rooms filled with screams she couldn't quite hear. Past figures that reached for her with hands, made of smoke. She walked for what felt like days. And then she found her. Serafina was kneeling in a circle of light. The only light in this entire dark place. Her dark hair hung in tangles around her face. Her pale skin was streaked with dirt and what looked like old blood. Her honey gold eyes were closed, but she was breathing, alive. Serafina. Layla approached carefully. The circle of light flickered as she got closer, as if trying to push her back. The woman's eyes opened. They focused on Layla with an intensity that made her stop in her tracks. You came. Seraphine's voice was hoarse, broken from disuse. I saw you. In my dreams. I reached out and you came. I'm here to take you home. Layla said, your husband, your daughter, they've been waiting for you. Seraphine's face crumpled. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I've been waiting too. 3 years. 3 years in this darkness. They told me Damien would forget me. That Elena would grow up not knowing my name. I almost believed them. Layla stepped into the circle of light. It didn't push her back this time. It welcomed her. They haven't forgotten. She said, kneeling in front of Serafina. They've been grieving you, loving you, keeping your memory alive. Serafina reached out. Her hand trembled. How do I get out? There's a price. Layla's throat tightened. The prison was made to hold you. It won't let you go easily. Someone has to take your place. Seraphine's eyes widened. No, I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me. It's not a sacrifice. Layla said, I've only been in this world for a month. I have no husband, no child, no centuries of memories. If I stay here, I won't be leaving behind what you would. Serafina shook her head. You don't understand. The prison doesn't just hold your body. It holds your soul. If you stay here, you won't just be trapped. You'll be erased, forgotten, as if you never existed. Layla felt fear crawl up her spine. But she pushed it down. Then at least I'll be forgotten for a good reason. She reached out and took Seraphine's hands. When you get out, tell Elena I said hello. Tell her to keep drawing stars. Tell her I love her. Serafina sobbed. I can't. I can't let you do this. You have to. Layla's voice was firm. For your daughter. For your husband. For the family that's been waiting for you. She closed her eyes and pushed. The circle of light exploded outward. Serafina was lifted, carried toward the surface, toward freedom, toward home. Layla felt herself sinking. The darkness wrapped around her like a blanket, cold, heavy, welcoming. She thought of Elena, of her smile, of her drawings, of the way she said Miss Layla like it was the most important name in the world. She thought of Damien, of the nights they'd talked until dawn, of the trust he'd placed in her, of the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious. She thought of her brother, of the stories she'd read to him, of the way he'd smiled even when he was in pain, and she let the darkness take her. Layla woke to sunlight. Warm, golden, real. She was lying in a bed she didn't recognize. Soft sheets, fluffy pillows, the scent of roses drifting through an open window. Am I dead? She whispered. A laugh, wet and cheerful. No, you're not dead. Serafina sat beside the bed. She looked different than she had in the prison. Clean, healthy, alive. Her dark hair was brushed and shining. Her pale skin had color in its cheeks. Her honey gold eyes sparkled with tears and joy. How? Layla tried to sit up. Her body felt weak, heavy. You didn't stay in the prison, Serafina said. The circle of light you created, it didn't just push me out. It broke the prison entirely. The darkness couldn't hold either of us. Layla's heart soared. Elena? Damien? Safe. Seraphine's smile was radiant. Waiting for you. They've been here every day. Watching over you. Willing you to wake up. Every day. Layla's voice cracked. How long was I gone? 3 weeks. Seraphine's expression softened. Your body stayed here, but your mind was traveling, healing. The bond with Damien kept you tethered, kept you from fading. The door opened. Elena stood in the doorway. Her dark curls were messy. Her honey gold eyes were wide. In her hands, she clutched a drawing. 2 figures holding hands. 100 stars scattered across the page. Mama. She launched herself across the room, but not toward Serafina. Toward Layla. Layla caught her, holding her close, feeling her small body shake with sobs. I thought you went away. Elena cried. I thought you left like Mama did. I'm here. Layla whispered, tears streaming down her own face. I'm right here, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere, but you're not my real mama. Elena pulled back, looking at Serafina. Then at Layla. I have 2 mamas now. Serafina knelt beside the bed. Her hand found Layla's. Yes, she said softly. You have 2 mamas, and both of them love you more than anything in this world. Elena looked between them. Her face slowly broke into a smile. Can we have hot chocolate? With star marshmallows? Layla laughed. It came out watery and broken. Absolutely. Damien found them in the garden an hour later. Layla was sitting on a bench, wrapped in blankets despite the warm sun. Elena was curled in her lap, sipping hot chocolate from a mug decorated with painted stars. Serafina sat beside them, her hand resting on Layla's shoulder. 3 weeks. Damien said, approaching slowly. I thought I'd lost you. Layla looked up at him. His face was haggard, worn, like he hadn't slept in days. You didn't lose me. I came back because you're stubborn. He sat down on the bench beside her. Because you refuse to stay dead when people need you? Layla smiled. Something like that. Damien looked at Serafina, at Elena, at Layla, his family. Whole for the first time in 3 years. Thank you, he said quietly, for not giving up on us. Layla leaned her head against his shoulder. It felt right, natural, like she'd been doing it her whole life. I had a lot to fight for. The months that followed were strange, beautiful, hard. Serafina had been gone for 3 years. The world had changed. Elena had grown. Damien had grieved. Layla had arrived. They had to learn each other again, had to figure out what this new family looked like. Serafina didn't resent Layla, didn't see her as competition. She saw her as a gift, someone who had loved her daughter when she couldn't, someone who'd risked everything to bring her home. Layla didn't try to replace Serafina, didn't try to push her out. She stepped back, gave space, let Elena and her mother rebuild their bond. But Elena didn't let go of Layla, wouldn't. She held both their hands when they walked through the garden, drew pictures of three mothers: Serafina with her dark hair, Layla with her yellow hair, and a third figure, a woman with no face. Just stars dot for Mama in heaven. Elena explained. The Mama who watches over all of us, Layla understood. One evening, 6 months after Seraphine's return, Damien found Layla in the library. She was curled in a window seat, reading a book about vampire history. "You've been avoiding me," he said, sitting across from her. "I haven't been avoiding you." Layla closed the book. "I've been giving you space. You have your wife back. Your family is whole. You don't need me anymore." Damon's expression hardened. "Is that what you think? That you're not needed?" Layla looked down at her hands. "I'm just a waitress who got lucky. Serafina is your soulmate, your equal, your queen." Damien stood, crossed the space between them, knelt in front of her so their eyes were level. "Serafina is my past," he said quietly. "You are my present, and I want you to be my future." Layla's heart stopped. "What?" "The soul bond. The one I told you about before. The one that would make you mine completely. Protect you from aging, from illness, from everything that makes humans fragile. But Serafina and I have talked." Damon's voice was gentle. "She loves you, not as a rival, as a sister, as someone who saved her family. She wants you to stay, permanently." Layla's eyes filled with tears. "I can't. I won't take her place. You're not taking her place." Damien took her hands. "You're creating your own. Beside her. Beside me. Beside Elena. We're not asking you to replace anyone. We're asking you to join us." The door opened. Serafina stood in the doorway, Elena beside her, both of them holding drawings, both of them smiling. "We want you to be our family," Elena said. "Forever and ever." Layla looked at them, at Damien kneeling in front of her, at Serafina waiting by the door, at Elena clutching her drawings of stars. She thought about the cafe, about the bullets, about the little girl who'd ordered hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. She thought about the mirror, about the darkness, about the choice she'd made to sacrifice herself for a woman she'd never met. She thought about love, about family, about the strange, impossible, wonderful life she'd fallen into. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes to all of it." Elena cheered. Seraphine's eyes filled with tears. Damien pulled Layla into an embrace that wasn't romantic, wasn't possessive, just grateful, just family. They stood there, the four of them, holding each other in the library while the sun set outside the window and the stars began to appear. And somewhere in the darkness, Layla could have sworn she heard singing, a lullaby, soft and sweet. "Safe, little one. Safe in the shadows. Safe in the night. Mama is watching. Mama is waiting. Mama will keep you from harm." But this time, the voice wasn't Seraphine's. It was her own. Number. Epilogue. The stars we keep 1 year later. The garden was full of roses. Every color imaginable. Red and white and yellow and pink. Some so dark they looked almost black. Others so pale they seemed to glow in the moonlight. Elena ran between the bushes, her dark curls flying behind her. She was 7 now, taller, braver. Her laughter echoed through the night like music. Seraphina sat on a bench, watching her daughter play. Her hand rested on her stomach. Swelling with new life, Layla sat beside her, her hand resting on Seraphine's. "Are you nervous?" Layla asked, terrified. Seraphina admitted, "But excited too. Elena's been asking for a sibling for months. She's going to be an amazing big sister. She's going to be bossy." Seraphina smiled. Just like her father, Damien appeared at the edge of the garden. He carried a tray of hot chocolate, 4 mugs, steam rising into the cool night air, star marshmallows. He announced, "Extra for everyone." Elena ran to him, grabbing her mug with both hands. "Thank you, Daddy Dot. Thank you, Papa." Layla teased as she took her own mug. Damon's eyes crinkled. "Don't push it." They sat together in the garden, the 4 of them, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. Elena pointed upward. "That one's mine. And that one's Mama Seraphine's. And that one's Mama Layla's. And that one's Daddy's. What about the new baby?" Layla asked. Elena considered. "The new baby can have the moon." Seraphina laughed. "That's very generous of you. I'm a generous person." Elena said seriously. "Miss Layla taught me." Layla's throat tightened. She looked at Damien, at Seraphina, at Elena, at the garden and the palace and the stars. She thought about the cafe, about the bullets, about the choice that had changed everything. She thought about the mirror, about the darkness, about the love that had pulled her back. She thought about family, about the strange, impossible, wonderful people who had become her home. And she smiled, because some stories didn't end with kingdoms, or crowns, or happy ever afters. Some stories ended with hot chocolate and star marshmallows, with roses and laughter, with hands held in the dark and voices singing lullabies. Some stories ended with love, the kind of love that didn't ask you to be perfect, that didn't demand sacrifice or suffering, that simply said, "You belong here. You are wanted. You are family." Layla leaned her head against Damien's shoulder. Seraphine's hand found hers. Elena climbed into her lap, mug clutched carefully. They sat together in the garden, watching the stars, and Layla thought that maybe this was what heaven looked like. Not clouds and harps, not gates of pearl. Just this. Just them. Just love. And she wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world.